What is up, better humans? We got a very practical video / podcast today. And if you're listening to this on the podcast, you want to go over to YouTube and check this out if you want to see some of the visuals. Now, today's the day, before we get into today's content, where I was just pretty tired, decided to stand up at my standing desk, decided to record a video, even though I really didn't feel like doing it. So I went to my pending content notepad, found something to record about that spoke to me. And now here I am filling myself up with energy. Because action creates energy. Exercise, movement creates energy. It's kind of weird, paradoxical even, because you don't want to move because you're tired, not feeling great or whatever, but then you do the very thing you don't want to do, and it gives you the very thing you want, which is you don't want to feel tired, you want energy, etc. I've observed this for years now, so I've gotten to the point where I pretty much know it's going to pass, and I know the best thing for me to do is actually to move, to take action, to do something, to do the very thing I don't want to do. You know that, or maybe you'll learn that. And I'm not suggesting it's going to be easy to just say, oh, well, I know I should do this thing, because you're going to have all of these environmental factors. You're going to have your history, your biology, your genes, the way your mind operates. Maybe you are in the habit of telling yourself you deserve it, you deserve rest, or whatever. My recommendation is to start flipping your mindset so that when you don't feel like doing something, when you are tired or not feeling so great or whatever, and you go do something, you go take some action, you go exercise, you go take a walk, you record a video, you do something you don't want to do. You do something that sounds like it's a little bit too much or exhausting or whatever it is. You do that very thing. And then you watch how you feel better afterwards. So that is a short thought for the day. And today's topic is simple. I'm going to give you a few tools. I'm going to show you exactly how to do this. And then I'm going to try to encourage you to want to learn how to do this. If you can take a 10-inch cast iron pan and you can throw in a piece of protein with some seasoning and a little bit of ghee or animal fat, you have always a healthy, tasty meal ready on demand. All it takes is you, a few ingredients, in about 10 to 15 minutes. There's nothing like the empowerment that comes from knowing you can make your own delicious food. And we see the problems with relying on the modern food system because we have people that are fat, sick, unhealthy, unhappy, whatever, because they pretty much outsource all of the cooking and prep and buying their food, whatever, to big corporations and or restaurants that their entire sole purpose is making a profit. And so they do things at a large scale that aren't good for your health. And they try to trick your brain by making these things very highly addictive and tasty, whatever. And it's just a vicious cycle that makes the users of these products more and more addicted, just like any other drug dealer. So when you learn how to prep your own food and then you learn how to source it, and you learn, basic cooking technique, and maybe go deep into that, or maybe just learn a little bit, it is the ultimate form of power and sovereignty. Controlling how you acquire food and what you do with it is one of those life things that has unfortunately died out in our modern era, and we're seeing the byproducts of that. We're seeing how bad that is for the individual, but also for our society as a whole. They're going to be actually attacking the food supply even more. It's going to be all part of this carbon credit program. We'll have to do another show on that. I'll talk about that more later. But today is how to pan fry a piece of steak. How to cook on the stovetop a steak, and really same technique for chicken breast, piece of fish, really any protein. Any thin protein that you can cook through in about 10 to 15 minutes using a combination of the stovetop searing and then tossing it in the oven to finish. Bam, voila, you have something tasty. You have a full meal. It's amazing. You can entertain people, impress the opposite sex. Most importantly, feed yourself in a healthy way from high quality real ingredients that you buy, ideally locally, rather than letting a corporation or restaurant cook for you. I have a picture here of a cast iron pan with 2 steaks in it. We got some butter in there, some thyme, a nice beautiful sear. That's what you're going to want to look at. Now, before we get to the actual how-to, let me show you a few things you need. You do need a few tools, and these tools will serve you in the kitchen, I promise you. This is the 80-20 when it comes to cooking tools. You only need a few of them, and you use them most of the time, right? Don't go on a shopping spree like I did back in the day, and then I had a bunch of stuff. I've thrown away a lot of stuff, and then I buy more stuff. It's not a good thing. Get a 10 to 12-inch cast iron pan. I would recommend getting the small size, which is like 6, and then they have an 8, 10, 12, 14, and maybe even a big one if you cook for a family. You're going to end up using probably the 10-inch and the smaller size, which is like an 8 or a 6 most of the time. And if you're cooking for a family, you'll probably use a 12-inch most of the time. All right, so you get that on Amazon, and we show here, we got them for like 10 to 15 bucks. You can even get these at Walmart, all right? So this is just super easy. Get a high quality cooking oil. Here we have organic ghee. You can get this here, you get it at a local store. You get it in big batches from Costco, etc. I like ghee. You can do avocado oil. Then this is one of those things that everybody I know, nobody has these things, even though it's the most useful tool in the kitchen you're going to find. It's a rack with a sheet pan. Okay, cooling metal rack that fits right inside a sheet pan. This thing is a workhorse in the kitchen. So what I do is I grab one of these when I'm taking my steak out of its package, put that package with all the juices coming out into the sheet pan. I then take it out, pat my steak dry, drain out the sheet pan of all the juices, whatever, and then I season that steak, place it on the rack, let it sit there for a second while my pan is preheating, and then that is ready to go. And then after I sear it on each side, if I need to finish it in the oven, I take it out of the pan, put it onto the sheet rack, and then put that sheet rack into the oven. And then finally, a pair of tongs. I like this pair right here. It's got the metal end, rubber grip. You're going to use these things all the time. Just get them. Now, the actual technique. So like I said, the most important thing is to take your steaks out, pat them dry. Okay, that's how you get a sear. Then you season those bad boys down with a good amount of salt. I would recommend seasoning with more salt than you probably think you need, at least for the first few times, and then you get better at it, and then you can kind of adjust how much seasoning you like. Oh gosh, this is gross. She's got vegetable oil here. That is so bad. Preheat your pan. That's the most important thing. Preheat your pan over probably medium-high heat. Then it starts smoking. Maybe turn the heat just down a little bit. Add your oil. Be careful. It's going to splatter everywhere. And then you place your steaks into that pan and you don't disturb it for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. It'll have a nice sear. And then you take those tongs, you grab that steak and you flip it. And if you see brown, delicious, beautiful crust, that's flavor. That's what you want. Repeat the process. Let it sit on the other side for about 2 minutes. Then, depending on the thickness of the steak, if it's one of those thinner steaks, then you could probably put it on the sheet pan and rack, cover it with some foil, let it rest 5 minutes. If it's thicker, then it needs to go into the oven. So you remove it from the pan, put it onto the sheet rack, put it into the oven, 350 to 325 degree, and then let that bad boy cook until it's all the way cooked through. And a meat thermometer comes in like gangbusters. I usually like to cook mine to like 128-ish. And then I let it rest and it hits like 130 to 132. I don't like my steaks as rare. I like it where it's that cooked pink, nice and juicy. That's a preference. You can cook it as rare or as done as you'd like. Like in here, you can do like butter basting and do things like this before you transfer it to the sheet pan. But really, that's the process. It's as simple as that. Let's review. Preheat pan, medium to medium-high heat for at least 2 minutes. You want that thing smoking hot. Add your fat. Add your steak. Don't touch steak for 2 minutes. Flip steak. Don't touch steak for 2 minutes. Grab steak. Place on sheet pan rack. If it's done, let it rest 5 minutes. Slice into it. Enjoy. And then use finishing salt so that every bite is just delicious. If it's thicker steak, maybe use a probe thermometer. Stick it in the middle of that bad boy. Put it in the oven. And then that probe thermometer will tell you when it's ready to go. Or if you don't have that, well, I can't really get into that. It's actually pretty complicated to figure out the doneness. You're going to have to experiment and learn and undercook some steaks, overcook some steaks, etc. That's fine. That's all part of the learning process. But when you can do this and cook a steak in a pan at home in about 10 to 15 minutes, it's going to unlock an entirely new level of health, food sovereignty, and just personal ownership. Like you can control your health. You can control your food. The fact that this has actually died out, that most people do not know how to prep food or cook it. If you dropped them in the middle of the wild, they'd be dead within a couple of days. It's pretty crazy, actually, considering America was founded by hardcore men and women that went to the frontier with like nothing, no infrastructure, and they figured that shit out. So pay homage to your ancestors and do your health a favor and your life and your sovereignty, etc., by learning how to cook with a cast iron pan. The more you do it, the better you get. It'll become a staple in your routine. And then you'll never walk into the kitchen intimidated because you'll always have an easy, delicious thing to make. That's it. Subscribe to the Better Human Podcast over at thebetterhuman.co. And if you're on YouTube, you can hit that subscribe, like, share button if you want. That's it. That's all I got today. And I really am not feeling in the flow right now. But again, the lesson is I did it anyways. I'm probably going to have to edit out a lot of parts here, a lot of false starts, and a lot of buzz. But I did it. I'm glad I did it. I got a little bit more energy than when I started. And I'm going to go about my day. I'm going to get out in the sun. I'm going to go outside, spend some time with the family. Today's a good day. Every day is a good day. Every day you're above ground is a good day. I'll see you in the next one.